Hello, cats and kittens, or Jose Yoroshiku. Back in the Crisis Corner with my impressions of One Piece 913, entitled Suru Repays a Favor. It's an interesting chapter in that it's not long. It's a standard amount of pages, but it's not long in the sense that it's focused mainly on a fight between uh, Zoro, Luffy, and Hawkins, and then just one little aside after that, and it's done. So it's mainly a fight. We pick up from basically where the last chapter ends. Zoro and Luffy about to square off with Hawkins, and Luffy's still brandishing his sword, the Nidai Katetsu, which he clearly does not know how to use, because Rayleigh didn't train him how to use swords, I assume. You don't even assume. You can tell by the way he fights. He doesn't know how to use swords. And Zoro's like, yo, he feels that sword is important. He feels that there's something strange about that sword. He's like, hey, give it to me. Let me see that for a second. And Luffy just wants to fight, and he's fighting with the sword. He might as well not even have it. He's just throwing punches with a sword in his hand, which is not swordsmanship. And he throws the scabbard at the attackers for some reason. It doesn't even make sense. It's almost like you don't do that. What are you doing? This is a skilled swordsman, and he's looking at this guy fighting with a sword like a maniac, and he's like, hey, just give it to me for a second. And so Luffy's into the fight, so he doesn't care. So he attacks, throwing a pistol with a sword in his hand, which I imagine, I think it does actually cut somebody, but mainly by accident. I think the fellow all the way over on the left might have been cut by it. I think he actually he actually breaks a guy's sword and cuts him, but all in all, it's just him throwing punches with a sword in his hand, which is just weird. And in the process of fighting, one of the lizards attacks Luffy. He ducks the attack wasn't even of consequence. He ducks it and throws the lizard at Hawkins. This is when we finally get to see Hawkins use his sword, which I don't think he's used it before, but more in depth we get into Hawkins' abilities, which I'll get into later. But his abilities are a little strange. So he throws the lizard at Hawkins. Hawkins impales it with his straw sword. It's a straw sword, which you wouldn't think would have any effect, but he can manipulate straw because he ate the straw fruit. The battle continues. We further see Hawkins' abilities. Zoro goes in with a flying slash. I mean, he's a straight killer. So he goes with the flying slash, hits Hawkins in the head. The damage defers, as we've seen before, defers to one of his henchmen through his ability, which is to make these little straw dolls, voodoo dolls, or whatever you want to call them, just deflect the damage that he takes onto one of his minions. Which these minions are clearly, I wouldn't say clearly, but I don't take them to be his men from the Hawkins Pirates. They may be minions that were given to him to go on patrol to find Zoro. In any case, the Hawkins pirate crew must have a high turnover, because why would you serve with this man? I mean, he's like, you're a pawn in the game that he's playing. And is there any malice with it? Maybe, maybe not. But the man, his subordinates of no specific consequence to him, I don't think. Because he's constantly letting them take hits for him. Back in Shabundi Archipelago, when Kizaru was hitting him with those laser attacks. Let me think about that. I think some of his men went down for that. Definitely there were some random people miles away that got killed. Let me think. Did his men go down for that? I don't recall. But definitely these guys must be like henchmen that were given to him, because they take the hits, and he's not concerned about that. They go down, so be it. So they notice that he even plainly states, I'm down one life, which I would never tell my enemy, because then they would know how many lives I could lose. But anyway, he says I'm down one life, and if I take 10 more hits, basically I can die 10 times and I'm still good. I would never tell anybody that. Then he goes into his his sword turns into this big monster that we seen before when he was fighting Kizaru, and he says basically let the games begin. And in the manga stream translation, he says, I now face two of the worst generation. I'm no earnest fool. I have no desire to fight you both, honestly. Now, I haven't seen any different translations, but to me, that's actually pretty accurate. He's fighting against two of the worst generation. Basically, his men are of no consequence. They're just fodder. So it's basically 2-on-1. I would duck out. But he's getting into this fight. He doesn't do bad for himself, actually. Zoro's like, good, let's do this, you know what I mean? And out come the cards. Now, here's the interesting thing. I can see no correlation between eating a straw fruit and the tarot cards. So, since his epitaph is the magician Basil Hawkins, he's a magician that ate the straw fruit. So his abilities to manipulate these cards and maybe even the voodoo dolls I'll give to the straw fruit because they're made of straw. But the other stuff he's doing is just straight on. They got nothing to do with the eating the straw fruit. It can't. It doesn't. There's no correlation between one or the other. So he pulls out these cards. As a matter of fact, it kind of reminds me, the way he behaves reminds me of Two-Face from Batman. He doesn't do anything unless Two-Face doesn't do anything unless he flips that coin. The coin basically makes decisions for him. And Hawkins operates as these cards dictate. So he shuffles the deck, he draws a card. I think he says the first one is the Fool in reverse, which causes his men to fight against themselves. So it was a bad draw for him, which further complicates matters because I can see if there's randomness to what he's doing. It's a random, pull of the cards. So these cards can help him or they can hurt him. That's a hard way to live, but so be it. Okay, so his men start fighting amongst themselves. At that point, the little dog thing that Luffy and Zoro were riding along with Otama comes and scoops them up because her fever is getting worse. Now, I don't know if the dog did this of its own accord or was he prompted by, we'll get to her in a second. But it just comes and scoops them up and they take off. Now, at this point, Hawkins draws another card, and the card is the Hierophant reverse. And no, is that it? Well, yes. He said, "Don't forget, blah blah blah." So basically, the card is the card of retribution. So he follows them. So he's chasing after them. They're running away, not because they're scared, but they're running away because they have to help the little girl. Zoro basically tells Luffy, take care of her. I'll handle the pursuer. He attacks. Well, Zoro takes a little bit of damage, but not too much. And eventually dispatches the big monster voodoo thingy with what was it? Onigiri? No, it was a nigiri attack. He basically cuts him in half. And again, that does no damage to Hawkins himself. Somebody else takes the damage. I feel for you if you're part of the Hawkins crew. I really do. But they get out of that situation. Then Hawkins pulls another card, which basically tells him that Luffy and Zoro are going to receive help. Now it seems like he breaks off the pursuit at that point, and then out comes Osuru, who was hiding in the dog's tail. Now I'm wondering, is she the one that told the dog to hurry? No, she didn't. She couldn't have told the dog to hurry up and get Zoro and Luffy so they can leave, because in one of the panels she actually asked is that Otama over there? And then she relates that she actually knows her. So she wasn't aware of the situation to the point where she'd tell the dog, "Hey, go get those two so we can get out of here." So the dog apparently is very smart. Okay, so turns out that I forget her name. So Suru runs she's a hostess at a mistress of a tea shop, a tea house, and she agrees to help Otama by giving her some herbs that would heal her of the sickness that she's suffering from drinking the poison water. From there, they go to Wano Country, Curry, run downtown. They go to the tea house that Osuru has, and she tells Osaku to prepare the tea that will be given to Otama so that she can recover. And as they're there, they run it. Osaku was being propositioned by this sumo wrestler named Urashima, who I think at some point is going to be an ally, although he could easily be because he has fresh water and fresh food. That's the bribe that he's holding out to Osaku to marry him or whatever. So he has fresh provisions, which means he's likely one of Kaido's men or allied with the Shogun, but something tells me that this fellow's going to wind up being an ally. It's just a guess. He might be. Anyway, so she hollers to them to prepare the herbs that will help Otama, and it basically ends there, except for this one end bit where we see members of the Hearts Pirates, Bippo and Penguin and Sachi, watching them from a distant mountain. It says a certain mountain, which means a certain mountain is probably going to be important. And they're just observing this. They notice that this is Straw Hat Pirates, and they're wondering, should we go over there and get them before they raise too much of a fuss? And if they're supposed to be undercover, I don't know why they got the Heart Pirate emblems all over themselves. That's probably a bad move, but that's where we end. And we're going to be on break next week, I think. This week, I think we're on break. Yeah. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of it. But the big takeaway that I have from this chapter is how Hawkins' abilities work, and the fact that the majority of his abilities have nothing to do with having eaten the straw fruit. I mean, they say he's the magician Hawkins, so he's a magician who ate the straw fruit, and you combine the two, that's how he can do what he does. That's the only way I can see it. Otherwise, straw is a fantastic element, or whatever you would call it, because he's getting a lot of mileage out of that straw. So that's the end of this chapter, and I don't think there's anything that I missed. Oh, there's one thing that was of interest. It's kind of random, but when he first encounters him on the first page, he says the chance that 1 month from now you will all be alive is 19%. That seems kind of random. If you just ran into somebody, why would you arbitrarily pull out 1 month? I didn't hear anybody say anything. I'd have to go back and look, but I don't remember anybody saying anything about a month. It's just a day from now, maybe. I mean, because they just talked about beating down Kaido, and Luffy just said, we're here to beat up that Yonko. If they encountered him the next day, you would imagine they'd be killed. But whatever. So I just thought that was kind of arbitrary. Is that like saying that this is their whole adventure in Wano is basically going to last a month of their time? I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got. No chapter this week, so we wait another week for a chapter. Either way, that's it. That's all I got. Holla at you later from the Crisis Corner. Stay loose.